Hello and welcome to summer. This is part one of a two-part episode. You can find the second part over on Patreon. Hello and welcome to What Would Jesus Tech? It's summertime, and if you're like me, you're a little bit scared because there's so many things you can do. There's so much time that you now have with your kids, and you need to figure out what to do. I'm joined with Austin and Joel, and couldn't figure out my prepositions there. And we're all going into summer, and so we want to encourage one another as dads. This is going to be talking about dads. We recently had a meetup with a few people in the Discord group that live near me. We all went out for drinks, and I kind of reflected after. I'm like, we're all dads. Like, we're all dads who pretty much all of us work in tech, except for me. I didn't work in tech, unlike the rest of the people there. And I just thought, you know what? We're all dads. We're starting into the summer. We're figuring out what level of technology is appropriate for kids at different levels. And that goes from video games to phones for texting friends to sending emojis, all these kinds of things. So I have two kids. They are 5 and 7. Joel, what are your kids at now?
4 and 6. Well, in the summer.
Yeah. And Austin?
Mine just turned a year old.
Very cool. So, Austin, why don't we start with you? Has your child seen a screen yet?
Oh, he has. We had the TV in our living room, as one normally does, when our son was born, and it stayed in our living room up until about a month and a half ago, when my wife and I decided to take it out of the living room because we could see, like even as a 9-month-old, 10-month-old, his reaction to the TV, just like becoming so utterly engrossed in what he was seeing that he would not want to do anything else. And ever since we took the TV out of the living room, we moved it to our bedroom, just so my wife and I can still watch some stuff together. But now the living room is a screen-free play area, and he's just the happiest little boy.
So even when the TV was off, it would still be a distraction?
Yes. Not as much when it was off, but it was on. Even if we weren't watching something, we would use the Apple TV to like play music and stuff, or podcasts and stuff. So it was still usually showing something, even if it was like mostly static, like, an album cover or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting what becomes the center of your home. In some cultures, they have idols in their home, and then they all gather around an idol. They're obviously, we've talked about a hearth before, or hearth, whatever accent you have will define it differently, but that's that wood stove that is used for cooking and meal prep and warmth, and also bringing the family together. That could be the center of a home. And so there is a lot of things that you need to think about in terms of the architectural interior of your home. Joel, you're probably the most pro video games of the dads that I know. Are you going to play lots of video games with your kids this summer? Is that the plan?
Probably more than in the school year. I think, in a way, I feel guilty. My eldest son, he's like, yeah, can we play games? And usually I'm like, no, because he'll want to like play Mario Kart. And then, after we have a 1 hour limit on gaming. And then after that hour, he'll be like very, I don't know, energetic and excited. And then it's like his emotions are a little bit more unregulated. So sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, like maybe not, because we have, you have to go to bed by this time. We have school tomorrow, this, that. But in the summer, we can be a little bit more carefree and lax about timelines. And I do think it's probably a good opportunity to give them that flexibility to know, like, hey, like there is a time for regimented schedules, and there's a time for a more carefree lifestyle. And I think that'll probably be a good thing to do, and have them have some sort of memory of like, okay, like the summer is a little bit more fun than usual.
So I actually go in the opposite direction sometimes in the summer. So my idea of the summer is not freedom for more technology, it's restrictions and less technology. Now, that's my approach, in part because my wife and I have tried to build our summers around the fact that our kids aren't going to be in school, so I'm not going to be working on PhD stuff over the summer. We're not going to podcast that much over the summer. And I don't know, my kids being 5 and 7 and being at the ages that they're at, I want them to form in character. And everybody's been sharing that paper, Your Brain on ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah.
Just the idea that if you're using ChatGPT, at least in some of the use cases, like writing something, and you're just allowing something else to write something for you. Well, of course, you're not using your brain as much, so you're not forming those connections within your own neural networks within your own brain. So you're not forming those connections and therefore not forming the ability to think in certain ways. So, and the same thing applies to Google Maps. You will not know your neighborhood as well if you're always using a GPS. And there's just like, I want to, and some of this is coming out of Jonathan Haidt's book. There's another book called Playborhood. Playborhood. Yeah, and it talks about, if you go back 30 years, it was much more common for kids to go, at least in suburbs and city environments even, to go to their friends on their own. Like, it wouldn't be unreasonable for a 7-year-old to just walk for 5 minutes to a friend's house. Like,
I did that all the time.
That doesn't happen anymore. And so this summer, I want it to be more of that kind of a playborhood, and I want to encourage that. But I know that in my neighborhood, there's a mix of where I'm living. So in the rental units, they often don't have kids in my neighborhood. And then in some of the other ones, they're going to cottages. And so they're not actually around very much. Or they're in camps all summer.
That's
so
the other thing. Yeah.
I'm a stay-at-home dad. And like, it's interesting. Thank you for listening to this episode. We cut it off short, but you can keep listening on Patreon. Thanks for supporting. Have a great summer. Bye now.